Hello and welcome to another episode with Enough Prep. I'm your host, the Nerd Man, and today we're talking about actor Harry Lennix and his interview on playing Martian Manhunter and the Josh Whedon scandal. Now, obviously, I've had to dramatize the situation somewhat, but he did do an interview very recently, which I thought was a very, very interesting insight into his relationship with Josh Whedon. What I didn't know about the guy, at least it passed me by, I don't know if anybody else knew, was that he was actually in a Josh Whedon production before Justice League. So I'll go on to the interview and we'll discuss that later, and I'll go straight to the points that are pertinent in the interview. Now, one thing I wanted to say and clarify, because I have had somebody that I had a back and forth with who was a Ray, he was somebody who stands with Ray Fisher. And I really appreciated the discussion I had with one of my subscribers on the issue of Ray Fisher. And he brought up some very salient points. And before I go on to discuss this any further, and I might even do a video on this, I want to make very, very clear regarding, how I've said I stand with Charisma Carpenter, but I don't stand with Ray Fisher. That is nothing to do with her being a woman, or me believing women more, or me believing me being a kind of Uncle Tom or something about this, where I'm like, I don't believe when a black guy says, or somebody of color talks about racism. That's absolutely untrue. In fact, most of the reason that I'm so against cancel culture, and then secondly, I really have a problem with this method of cancel culture where you can just go online and Me Too somebody and destroy someone's career. Most of the reason I've come to this conclusion, apart from certain things in my own personal experience, no, I haven't been accused of anything terrible, but certain experiences I've had in past. But most of the reason is because I want to protect young black people from being from these malicious types of campaigns that are used. They tried to bring Michael Jackson down with it, with a preposterous TV show that was completely one-sided, and and essentially can be proven factually to have been false, a lot of the accusations, and they have a whole documentary on it, no problem. So there's a number of different, not only black artists and black, celebrities and stuff, but black people in general who are so easily taken down, because if a woman says this about a black guy, right, people will believe them straight away. They will believe them straight away. If Amber Heard had have made the accusations against a black guy rather than Johnny Depp, you best believe nobody would be coming out saying Amber Heard is this horrible, horrible person, and she's in fact the aggressor in that relationship. It would take a lot more than just some tape of her basically confessing to having hit him to actually turn the wheels around. I can assure you of this. This is absolutely true. You look at the history of when black people have been accused of these types of things, what happens? So, somebody said to me recently, now Charisma Carpenter's come out, everyone's changed their energy. And they're supporting her, and they believe now Ray Fisher. or they believe now, but before they didn't believe. It took some white woman, coming around in tears. Now, I want to make very, very clear on this. The only reason I believe, or the only reason I'm taking Charisma Carpenter more seriously and seeing her as more credible, nothing to do with her femininity or her being a woman or, the sub story. One, she gave a full account of what supposedly happened. And that wouldn't be enough for me. That isn't evidence to condemn somebody for that. But secondly, and this is more important, she said this years ago. I read about these allegations prior to her even saying it online. So I'd read about them when I was looking into Josh Whedon, because I was like, what did Josh Whedon do? Why is he such a controversial figure? When Ray Fisher was coming out with all these allegations, and people were saying, Josh Whedon had this checkered history. So I went into the past and I was looking for what this checkered history was. And the only thing I could find that was credible was Charisma Carpenter's allegations. The rest of it was all nonsense. It was like he wrote a sexist screenplay. I'm like, okay, so he wrote a bad screenplay. That doesn't make him a terrible person. So the only thing I could find was Charisma Carpenter. And she'd said this years ago. She said she buried the hatchet with him and that she forgave him for it. It's more than her right to turn around and say, no, actually, that was quite abusive now, and that she supports Ray Fisher. But essentially, yeah, I'd read about this a long, long time before. And I saw nothing by Josh Whedon suggesting that this hadn't happened to Charisma Carpenter. So that's why I believed it, straight off the bat. And it was nothing to do with her being a woman. And then the second thing, I kept the energy very, very similar between Ray Fisher and then Michelle, who played Buffy's young sister on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I kept the energy exactly the same in terms of, I looked at their posts, Ray Fisher's posts, and I looked at her posts, and I said, you cannot make accusations like this and expect somebody to be condemned to guilt for accusations that are so vague. So let me go on to Harry Lennix now, and what he's had to say most recently about playing Martian Manhunter and the Josh Whedon scandal. Now, I read this already, so it's not going to be a live response. But one thing I will say is I think this guy is a class act. I'm not the biggest fan of him playing the Martian Manhunter at all, but nonetheless, I've always liked this guy as an actor. I think he's a great actor. He brings a lot of gravitas to every role. But, Martian Manhunter, I have always seen as a kind of African, like maybe darker black person, and a bit younger and fitter and more, virile. I didn't see like a 60-something-year-old Martian Manhunter. But then again, that's Zack Snyder and his casting for you. So let's go to the point in question. Guys, tell me if you want me to do a bigger video on whether, looking at everything he has to say regarding Martian Manhunter in the Zack Snyder movie. So here we go. The interviewer asks this question. The reason there's a Snyder cut is because Zack was replaced by Josh Whedon on the movie. As you know, Ray Fisher has alleged that Josh engaged in misconduct during the shoot. You worked with Josh on 2 seasons of Dollhouse. So I wanted to ask if you had any thoughts on the matter. And this is what this absolute class act here's had to say about this. So sorry, Harry Lennix, this is what he had to say about this, and I think this is quite brilliant. And I'm not saying that this means Ray Fisher is wrong or anything like that. I'm not taking sides with this, but I just think this is so clever. And if there is a possibility of, well, let me read it first. So I wasn't there during the time in question. I am sorry that anybody had to experience what it was that was described. Obviously, there's one side of the story that we've heard. So he's saying, we've only heard one side of the story, so I'm not condemning anyone. I don't know that Josh has made any comments. As you point out, I worked with Josh fairly closely for a couple of years there. I didn't see that behavior. And at the same time, as an actor, my heart goes out to anybody that had to endure that kind of treatment. We get treated as citizens frequently, but I did not see it. And I would be curious to what Josh's response to this has been. Okay. So first of all, there's a lot of stuff going on here in just that statement. And what I love about this is comparing this to the statements that the Buffy, the Vampire Slayer cast and crew made. It makes this is so much more sophisticated and honest, right? This guy doesn't hide behind bullshit Hollywood, responses to shit. He comes out, he says what he means, he says what he thinks, and he's very clear. He doesn't give some bullshit Hollywood answer to it. He just says the truth, not his truth, the truth, right? And what he's saying here so clearly is that you ought to hear Josh Whedon's side out, first of all, that, obviously if he worked with him after Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so potentially that Josh Whedon may have grown from that situation. And, all right, say, for instance, Justice League may have brought out the worst impulses of Josh Whedon because obviously it was a chaotic and extremely pressure-filled production. So I'm not trying to justify anything on Josh Whedon's part. I'm just saying, what Harry Lennix is bringing out, that you have to give him a chance, that he understands both sides, but he wants to hear Josh out before condemning him. And where is that energy with the rest of the Buffy cast? Why are they so cowardly that they can't actually say, look, he didn't do anything to me? I think the closest person to actually say that, I should have brought up all of the Buffy cast now. I'm really annoyed. But the closest person to say anything like that was Alicia Dushka, right? So she was the only person who kind of laid out, like, look, you guys, if you've got something to say it. Say the whole thing, and unburden yourself of whatever secrets you're hiding, right? And so that the person can be judged in fully, for everything they may or may not have done. Now, I just find this so interesting that this black actor has such a different picture of somebody Ray Fisher basically described as a racist. Now, one thing that I think is very interesting in all of this is that there's various age groups here. So Harry Lennix, I suspect, is a little bit older than Josh Whedon. And then, of course, Ray Fisher is much younger than Josh Whedon. And I think that there's a different tolerance to certain issues surrounding race right now at the moment. Like my generation of black people maybe actually, tolerate things that we shouldn't have tolerated. Maybe we have too much tolerance. Women of my age tolerate a certain levels of sexism that perhaps they shouldn't tolerate. And I think the younger generation have come out full, blown and said, no, unacceptable. We won't accept this. And they've gone so far that not only will they not accept it in past generations that are still living, but they actually judge people on the basis of modern morality who are now long dead. So people from the 19th, 18th century tearing down statues, this kind of thing. So the tolerance, or what one might see as racism in one generation, another might not see as racism in an older generation. So things like color correcting to make black people more light, that might have been part of the course for an older generation like Josh Whedon, but absolutely now seems unacceptable and really, having a very sinister undertone to why that is happening. Why are you trying to make everyone look light? Why are you trying to make everyone look like closer to white people, right? And there is a little bit of racism underlying that, you have to admit. Ray Fisher isn't wrong on that. But it's the tolerance to those things. The older generation like myself have a little bit more tolerance to those things than the younger generation. And the younger generation have to accept that maybe they're judging older people by values that they don't have. It's the same with Gina Carano and the pronouns thing that came up. It's like one generation is judging an older generation on morals that they're not, they haven't conceptually evolved to yet. It's not part of their way of thinking. They are stuck in ways of thinking of previous generations still. And I think it behooves the younger generation, just as we older generation are very, very tolerant, and sensitive towards how things are changing, that you give us at least a little bit of time to catch up and not just judge us by things that we wouldn't be aware of, right? So I like the fact that you see a very older black person's perspective when you hear what Harry Lennix is saying here. So I just hope everybody can move on with their lives, to be honest with you. As a former seminarian and as somebody who has made mistakes, so he's like, I'm with sin. I can't throw the first stone. I've been on either side of that equation. Directors sometimes are insensitive to the needs or the feelings of actors, and sometimes actors are needy, and sometimes they are oversensitive. What is the implication there? I know I can be. So that said, I hope whatever it was that happened, that people could move on, and outside of some unforgivable thing, see, this guy is like, he's speaking the mind. And this is how the older generation think. We are a people of forgiveness. We aren't like one strike, you're out. It's so funny that this is what this generation has got to. It's like, one strike, literally you're out of there. You can't make a single fucking mistake in your life ever. Unless, and we've all made mistakes. So it's just like, unless you're caught making that mistake, you're just going to be a hypocrite and judge the person who is accidentally caught making the mistake, right? Who makes the mistake in a more public arena or something. Whereas we all know we've done stuff like this. But, again, let's make clear, as he says, outside of some unforgivable thing, right? So let's make clear, and I agree, if it's an unforgivable thing, that people can forgive not just each other, but forgive themselves. to say, look, I may have made this mistake in the past. Now I know better, and I'm going to do better. This was a different time. What was tolerable 5 years ago, I think this is quite beautiful, actually. He's quite an eloquent, almost pastor-esque kind of speaker in the way he's speaking. What was tolerable 5 years ago, a year ago, is no longer. And we have to adapt to that. I think there's some of that going on, that this is a generation, that this is generational in some way. I know that Ray has it in himself to be better because of this, to be stronger, to have survived it. And I also hope that Josh can too, that he can survive it, be the writer and creator that he is, and we all can be better because of it. I'm wondering why this isn't getting a lot more, I think this should be all over the place. I really think this is so beautiful, the way he's laid this out. And I wish that this was getting a little bit more, how would you say, like media attention or even online attention for what he's saying here. So you're looking at this with more empathy than I would say many observers have in light of what Ray has alleged and what actors on Angel and Buffy have alleged about Josh on Wednesday. They didn't allege anything. Nobody alleged anything. One said that they couldn't stay in a room with him and didn't explain why. And the other, Charisma Carpenter, is the only person who has alleged anything credible, or as Harry Lennix says, unforgivable. Well, it's not even unforgivable. She's the only one who said something that actually is a terrible thing, and we can all go, yeah, we absolutely condemn that. That's a terrible thing for him to have done. She was pregnant. How awful. Whole career finished for that. I mean, think about it. If that was like, you're a new person. You've just reached your fame. You're this ginger nerdy guy, and you've just got famous from. Nobody liked you before. No girls were checking for you. Nothing, and you just got famous. In the 90s, right? You'll get a fucking big head. For a while, it will take you a time to acclimatize to that, and you might do some stupid things along the way. And he did something stupid with Charisma Carpenter, which she forgave him for at first, but then came back and said, actually, I don't forgive you. So they did make up, in some way at least. And then, yeah, so, in terms of, what Josh has done that is a definite, absolute no. I still think that is a forgivable sin if you look at it from a very human perspective, rather than just be a complete, I'm just going to judge, and I'm going to forget every wrong thing that I've ever done in my life, and I'm just going to judge this man and condemn him on the basis of this one error that he made in life. It's just, I just don't think, I think everyone in Hollywood would be gone. I think everyone from every job in the world would be gone if that is our standard. That being said, it was a horrible thing to do. She should get compensation, and he should publicly apologize for it. Nothing else has been said. I don't know what this interview is talking about allegations that were made on the Angel and Buffy the Vampire by Buffy the Vampire actors. Nothing was made. They said he was casually cruel, and to them when he was, just become famous and was doing Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Obviously, by the time he met Harry Lennix, he chilled out quite a lot, because Harry Lennix is not some big time star. I'm sorry, he wasn't like a big, massive name. So if Josh Whedon was reasonable with him, you can assume that he was reasonable with most of the actors on whatever production he was with Harry Lennix. Anyway, so yes, utterly professional. So were your experiences with Josh Whedon purely professional? Yes, utterly professional. I didn't see any of that kind of behavior that I'm hearing about, but I'm in a different place. That kind of thing is not likely to happen to me just because I'm a big black guy from the south side of Chicago, that people are a little more circumspect. Yeah. In however they might think. I wouldn't fuck with Harry Lennix. He looks like a fucking big tank of a guy. Circumspect, however they might think about treating me or talking to me. I think maybe we should give Josh another chance to respond, to see what his side of the story is, not minimizing anybody's story, not minimizing the experiences of others had in any way. But I believe that we must learn to reconcile, and we must learn to move on. Fucking spoken like a true preacher, bro. We wouldn't be able to take this into court per se, not really. What I've learned over the years is that two people could be telling the absolute truth from their point of view and disagree on what those salient points are. Whatever those salient points are, I think that everything that I have heard so far, and that's not everything, is recoverable. And so to the extent that it is recoverable, let's recover from it and keep moving. Josh hasn't commented. Ray hasn't gone public with almost any details. Thank you. At least you've mentioned that. The interview about almost any details about what he says happened on Justice League, and Warner Media hasn't revealed what the company learned in its investigation. So figuring out how to move forward is complicated in the absence of detail. I agree 100%. This guy Harry Lennix has put Ray Fisher on blast. I'm sorry. I agree 100%. What I've been able to glean from the stories and the back and forth, such as it is, mostly the fourth, is that nasty things were said, mean, insensitive things were said that made certain people uncomfortable. That's certainly something I'm familiar with actors having to endure. Indeed, that's part of the process. People say no to us for any number of reasons, or tell us to lose weight or gain it or get taller or shorter or younger. That's just the nature of the business. It's a personal business. I am of the opinion that this is entirely fixable, and that really what needs to happen is a dialogue. I mean, the old standard in American jurisprudence is that you have a right to face your accuser and to respond. Holy shit, spitting fire. I think that people have the right to present both sides of the case. In fact, it's not just a right, I think it's an obligation. I wonder what's going to happen. Oh, powerful words by Harry Lennix there. Again, hi there. So love what you're saying here, man. This is Ewan Stilk. Love what you're saying here, man. A lot of people don't understand that people aren't as generationally woke as believed. And that's really separating generations. Absolutely true. And if Josh can stay off the radar for a few years, this will eventually die down. He'll be able to come back. I hope so. If this is all there is, absent of him doing, as said, something unforgivable, if this is all there is, I absolutely hope that he'll be able to recover from this. And Jeff Johns, who I am a fan of. I'm not that big a fan of Josh Whedon at all. I'm actually, funnily enough, I'm a bigger fan of Zack Snyder than I am of Josh Whedon. But nonetheless, I think there's a point of somebody is innocent until proven guilty. And if he's done something truly unforgivable, then sure, fuck him. But we need some sense of, as he said, you have to be able to face your accuser in some kind of fair forum or trial. So you said after that, Evan Stilk, think he needs to address the fans publicly and apologize for letting them down and being involved in such controversy. Yeah, I don't know why he hasn't done that. And that's the one thing that leads me to think, is he guilty, or is he just scared that he's going to make it worse? I don't know, one or the other, because in this climate, everything can be twisted around. Short of some kind of interview, maybe, where he can really kind of talk about what happened. I don't know what the forum is, but essentially his silence does speak volumes, and it suggests to me that maybe Ray Fisher does have a case against him that's pretty bad. But it also could be he's very afraid of the unreasonable wrath that will bear down upon him if he answers any of these kind of allegations. Especially there was that young girl from Buffy the Vampire Slayer who was basically saying that I guess implying that he did something very, very inappropriate to her sexually when she was underage, and then says, I'm not going to say anything else about it. I'm just going to put that out there. I think that's awful. In fact, that's if it's the case that is something minor and it's not like a really like something terrible that he did. I haven't really thought about it up until now, but that's worse than what Ray Fisher did. What the girl, I'll find her name, from Buffy the Vampire Slayer said without actually stating what it is. And that's why I've said Charisma Carpenter for me has been a class act in this and coming out and saying everything that she needs to say. But Michelle Trachtenberg just comes out and says, she says he did something inappropriate to me when I was a teenager. Doesn't state if it was when she was older than 18 or whether it was younger, and then says, he did this inappropriate thing to me, but I'm not going to speak about it any further. But it was very inappropriate, and it's just like a man's career can be taken down for that. So I think that's almost, it's the racism thing is pretty bad if there wasn't some real serious thing that went down with Ray Fisher. But I can imagine that, because I saw a couple of the jokes in the Justice League film that seemed to me very, very, there was one joke that Flash says while he's on the grave with Ray Fisher, and he's trying to daps him, and he says, something about that being racially insensitive. Anybody who could write a line like that, I can imagine, could be very racially offensive, probably not without even knowing it. But yeah, again, I think I'm gonna cut this off here before this goes too long, but I am gonna be doing another stream very, very soon. I want to thank you, Evan Stalk, and those people viewing. Please do like, subscribe, comment down. What do you think about what Harry Lennix had to say in his interview here? I thought it was beautiful. Short of, obviously, as I've, case that skin tone being changed for JL. Yeah, I was going to say, short of the case that short of the fact that Josh Whedon did anything terrible, I really think that Harry Lennix has it right. I'm not that excited about him playing Martian Manhunter, but I really, really like this guy, and he's gone up 100-fold in my respect bar, because so many people just give Hollywood answers to these questions, and he gave a legitimate, thoughtful, and an answer that I think really should be something that people sit on and digest for a while. The meaning of this, because this can be turned around on anyone. I'm as much wanting to protect. If somebody came out tomorrow and said some vague accusation about Ray Fisher, I'd be defending the shit out of Ray Fisher, even though I'm saying this today, because I believe in due process so much. I think it's so important, and it's especially important to Black people, that we keep this in place, because we are the most vulnerable to being just accused without without any kind of trial or evidence. But anyway, thank you so much. Please do. I've really enjoyed all of your comments, Evan Silk, and please do like, subscribe for more content, and please give me a high five, smash that like button. Thanks so much. Goodbye, guys.